It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports, Pete.
B1 this Tuesday, by the way, but we are so happy that you're joining us today for another show. We are presented by Slovacics of West. Got to go to Slovacics. You got to check out my man Ray. You got to have some kolaches. And if you're driving down 35 and you're like, man, maybe I can wait to get to Hillsboro so I can go to Buc-ee's. No. You're going to Slovacics. It's way better. The experience is one that you'll talk to your friends about wherever you're headed. Also, Socorro Family Ford, we'd like to thank them for being in on things, D1. And, of course, Crawford Austin Properties here in Central Texas. I'll tell you what, man, I feel like property of a loser and a disappointed fan this morning. Watch the Eagles and the Falcons last night on Monday Night Football. I'll start by saying Joe Buck and Troy Aikman, they just make it feel bigger. When you watch a game and those guys are on the call, there's something about it that takes me back to my childhood. It feels like Frank Gifford, Al Michaels, and Dan Deerdorf. It feels like John Madden and Pat Summerall. It gives me that big vibe. There are other number one teams around the NFL who don't provide me with that same jolt. I think you can almost talk about Tom Brady and the situation with him calling games for Fox. It's really exciting to watch a game when you know that Tom Brady's going to be the analyst, but at the same time too, he's still kind of finding his way. Kevin Burkhardt is great as a partner, setting him up and taking care of him, but it's just not that solid yet. Romo and Nance, I had a blast watching them on Sunday. Tony Romo is an absolute hoot, for lack of a better word, and Jim Nance really makes you feel like you're just watching the game with one of your pals. But there's something special about Monday night still. So that was a big impression that I had. Also, too, as somebody who calls games, I was all encouraged, I should say. There's a lot of human moments. When you think about, okay, this game's on Monday Night Football, this is going to be the quintessential broadcast, right? It's going to be flawless. That is not the case. With every broadcast, there are snafus. Joe Buck talking about a play we're going to see next. That play ending too early before it gets to the point that Joe Buck was talking about we're going to see here. Joe Buck makes a funny line, oh, maybe we won't see it. Troy Aikman talking over an official, which is like, that stuff all happens. And there were a couple other moments where I was like, wow, this broadcast for the last, it happened in like 2 minutes straight. I was like, this is a little bit of a clunky broadcast. Now, of course, we're talking about the best crew ESPN has to offer. We're talking about, and I mean production-wise. And then we're talking about two of the best announcers on the planet. So the game found a rhythm. They welcomed Jason Kelce into the box. He was great. I felt like he was speaking a little too soft, but he was like, wow, you want to talk about a natural? He just fits right in. Of course, that's a home game for him. But I was impressed by that was the first Monday Night Football game I watched start to finish this year. I watched bits and pieces last week, but it still feels like an experience. It still feels special. I would still turn on Monday Night Football to check in with Joe Buck and Troy Aikman, even if I'm not interested in the game at all. I will do the same thing for Romo and Nance. I probably will listen to the other team to kind of see how Tom Brady is doing. These are all scenarios where the game isn't that good. But Joe Buck is, in my opinion, one of the, if not the best to ever do it. I love his voice. I love his calls, and I love his sense of humor too, that I think is grossly underrated. Now, the game, that game sucked as far as the Eagles and their inability to score. Initially, the game starts, and you're looking at Saquon Barkley, and every time he carried the football, it felt like a chunk play, 10 yards, 9 yards. On the other side of that, Bijan Robinson doing the exact same thing. I really thought early in the night, I said, wow, wouldn't this be magnificent if we had one of these Monday Night Football games where we had these two prolific runners going back and forth and they were going to put up monster numbers. That did not happen. The Eagles, look, let's talk football real quick. Again, I always need to preface this. I don't ever want to come off like a hot take guy or like somebody who's like an expert, but from an observation standpoint, I'm not totally sold on Nick Sirianni as a football coach. I'm just not. There are voices in Philadelphia that feel like he is a puppet for general manager Howie Roseman. I'm not saying that at all, but I am saying that I'm just not in love with the results since he has been the head coach. Of course, you can't deny going to a Super Bowl, but you also worry about things like, at the end of the first half, I was really disappointed they didn't just settle for a field goal. Going forward on fourth down, not getting it. And then in the latter stages of the game, I come down on this. We're about to play a clip to show you how the game ended. Now, the Eagles are driving at the end of the game. They're in the red zone. All they need is a first down to win the football game. They could have knelt on the ball twice and really left Atlanta with like no time on the clock to even have a somewhat functional drive where they needed to score a touchdown. They couldn't score a field goal. They had no timeouts left. I wanted to show you a clip of this play because I think it's neat to watch. This is the Manning cast, right? After I talked all this about Joe Buck and Troy Aikman, I'm going to show you the Manning cast. But so you got the Manning bros, 2 Super Bowl winning quarterbacks. And then you got Matt Ryan, didn't win a Super Bowl, but came pretty damn close. And Matty Ice was just exceptional as a quarterback. I loved his accuracy. And I always felt like he was a guy that could get it done. Unfortunately, he didn't in the Super Bowl. But these are 3 guys. By the way, Matt Ryan's from Philly. Here is their reaction to a passing play on third down that went right through the hands of Saquon Barkley. Take a look.
They all play. Oh. No! Oh! Ooh. Oh. Wow. Ooh. They had it. He listened. Jalen watched what Matt Ryan said. He said, I'm running that play again. I'm going to give him the perfect throw. Front shoulder, like Matt said. Get it out in front. Wow. That's why you don't throw, though. That's why you don't throw.
It is why you don't throw, but it was a perfect call.
So in my opinion, there's almost nothing better than having a front row seat to those guys who you just have to respect because of their repetitions under center in the NFL and their massive experience and massive amounts of success. To a man, it seemed like they all agreed you don't throw the football there. But it's also one of those situations where if you have a coach who is, let's say, like you got a gambler, right? I don't know if that's what you call Nick Sirianni, his offensive coordinator, by the way, former Cowboy OC, Kellen Moore, who early in the game looked like he was absolutely mesmerizing. But down the stretch, you have calls like that. Saquon Barkley has to catch the football. That's where I come down on that. It doesn't matter. The play worked. Saquon Barkley dropped the football. In fact, on a play like that, Hurts is rolling right. It's third down. A first down, and you win the game. But if you can't complete the pass, you just take the sack or you slide. You go to the turf, and the clock continues to run. Unless your running back is wide open. So there it is. There's the key. You drop it off to Saquon Barkley, first down. Could have been a touchdown. By the way, he's on my fantasy team. That would have been great. But game is over. That's not what happened. What I do appreciate after the game, just kind of de-escalating the entire situation. Let's listen to Saquon Barkley talking to reporters in Philly after Monday Night Football.
Dropped the ball. Let my team know today. Shouldn't have put the defense in that position. Made that catch. Game's over. Relax. Get back to my old habits and just gotta go back and get back to work.
Were you surprised with the play call? Did you expect a running play or?
No. Once I knew it, I thought it was a great play call. I just gotta make the touch.
How tough is this loss? Obviously, it looked like you had this thing wrapped up.
Yeah, it definitely sucks. Any loss sucks. But when the game comes down to a few plays, and it hurts a little more when you're the one who's making a mistake on that play. So
Saquon Barkley owning it. As a fan, I like to see that. I also like to see that, it was a great call. And I think it was a great call. I really do. I think that you can't fault the call, but you can fault the way that play turned out. I mean, 99 times out of 100, when your quarterback rolls right and sees the running back wide open, he's going to throw them the football. And this is the NFL. This isn't Midway. So it's kind of a bummer to see that happen. If you're an Eagles fan like me, the Eagles now at 1-1. I want to move now to talk to a team who is a laughingstock in the NFL. And I have a little bit of skin in the game with this one, having lived in Charlotte for large portions of my life. The Carolina Panthers are a complete disaster. And the unfortunate part about a disaster like this is not only does it have a direct impact on the fans and the people who are paying money to go see this team play, the taxpayers of Charlotte, for crying out loud, they're called the Carolina Panthers. All of North Carolina gets behind this team, at least all of North. There aren't even, when I lived there, the Panthers were relatively new. This is like 2000, on and off from 2000 to 2013, 14. So a lot of people there were holdovers that still like the Redskins, some like the Cowboys, because you kind of picked your team. Geez, I wouldn't be surprised if they're going back to that now. I would have a fire sale if I was a fan and find another team myself to cheer for, because this team is rough to watch. So the fans are feeling it, but Bryce Young is feeling it too. This is a number 1 overall pick who you mortgaged your franchise for, to be able to have this number 1 pick. You look at some of the draft picks that are still left. You're going to give the Bears probably the number 1 pick in the second round next year. Caleb Williams, obviously a part of the deal. When you look at it at the end of the day, and we'll find out what's going to go on with him. But there's all kinds of other parts of that deal that are going to live on for a long time. But the one thing that's living and breathing before our eyes in Carolina is Bryce Young. And he's had a rough go at it. Last year, the team sucked. He got better. Frank Reich, who he learned under a little bit, they got fired at the end of the year. So there you go. You got to start all over again under Dave Canales, and it has not gone well. Even last week, after the game, after the loss, Canales to the media, he's our quarterback. He's our quarterback. He's our quarterback. He's our quarterback. Well, they go ahead. They got blown out yesterday again, and now there's a new quarterback, right? They're going to start Andy Dalton, of all people, which I think it's a win for Bryce Young because you get him out of the line of fire. And I don't think we'll see. I think we'll see just how bad the Panthers really do suck, because I don't think there's anything Andy Dalton can do, because I think it starts at the top with Dave Tepper. But back to Bryce Young, the unfortunate part about this is that this could carry Bryce Young for the rest of his career. Now he's in a situation where, and look, he's made some mistakes, right? But he's now mentally got to dig himself out of this hole that he has been put in with a lack of infrastructure to succeed. I'm looking here now. I printed this out earlier. These are the number 1 overall picks that were quarterbacks all the way back since 1970, right? I'm going to read them off for you. And I think you'll be surprised to see how many of them actually have sucked. All right, Bryce Young, so far right now, he sucks, but we're not going to say it's fault. Trevor Lawrence, jury's still out, but he certainly showed flashes. They've gone to the playoffs. It's only been since 2021. Joe Burrow, Super Bowl. Kyler Murray playing his ass off this year and has showed incredible glimpses early on in his career. Baker Mayfield, a guy that's showed flashes. Of course, we talked about it in Cleveland, but then sucked. He's bouncing back again. Jared Goff went to a Super Bowl. Jameis Winston, Andrew Luck, Cam Newton, Sam Bradford. Sam Bradford, I got to say, like he ended up sucking overall. That's what I will say. Like, of the quarterbacks I've read so far, I'd say he was the most unsatisfactory. Then Matthew Stafford. The worst one on the list going away is Jamarcus Russell. Good God almighty. 2007. Now, I always say, like, I love the Raiders because I love the autumn wind and I love the commitment to excellence. In 2007, Al Davis was really starting to kind of fade mentally, and I think that played into part of it. Poor Cam's over there. We'll talk to him in the third segment. He's kind of laughing. 2005, Alex Smith. 2004, Eli Manning. 2003, Carson Palmer. All these are pretty good. David Carr, but he did have some early success. The guy won the first game he started, if we're comparing him at all to some of the – what are you laughing at, Cam? But what I'm saying, what I'm saying is he got off to a good start. And my point there is that he did have a decent career. Went to the playoffs, whatever, Cam. Suck it. All right. Michael Vick, of course, right? Great career. Now, Tim Couch, that's another one. You can circle him, and you can put him right up there with Jamarcus Russell. Then he didn't win shit for a while with Cleveland. They took a long time. But that's another guy, too. You can't compare him to Bryce Young, but his infrastructure was horrible. Those were the Browns, but they were the expansion Browns, and they were really, really bad. Peyton Manning in 98, Drew Bledsoe, Jeff George, but, still had a decent career. Troy Aikman, Vinny Testaverde, John Elway, Steve Bartkowski, Jim Plunkett, Terry Bradshaw. My point in reading off those quarterbacks is, of all of them, since 1950, I can only look at like 3 or 4 who you're like, nah, I don't know. So the odds are for Bryce Young to have at least a decent, if not good, career. But he's been dropped into a situation where he really is going to have to dig himself out of a hole. The Carolina Panthers, and I really think it's because of the environment there. David Tepper, their owner, we're actually going to talk to Kevon Cobb and go in deep about some of the David Tepper stuff. But there's no worse organization in sports since he took over as the owner. He's just been a joke publicly in Charlotte. We've seen the videos of him treating servers at restaurants the wrong way, throwing cups at fans. It's just a bad situation there. And I'll be interested to see what the long-term solution is, not just for David Tepper, but for the NFL. I asked John Tobias this morning, a Charlotte native and one of our go-to guys here. I said, if you could put him between on the scale from Mickey Harrison, who owns the Heat, who I think is one of the best owners, to like Donald Sterling, where is David Tepper? And he said he's about a Daniel Snyder. So that's a pretty good reflection of where he's at. And the way the people that follow the game and know the game are feeling about this dude. I'm sure Bryce Young is feeling some kind of way about it all. We're going to step aside. We're going to talk to Kevon Cobb next. Of course, we got Cam and his wise-ass remarks coming up in a little bit. I want to talk to Cam about Aaron Hernandez and the FX documentary that is actually, you can stream it right now. Don't go anywhere, though. Keep streaming our show. But Kevon Cobb's coming up next on the Rogue Media Network's Pete Sousa Show.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports, Pete. Sports.
With the locks last week, 2 for 3. I was most impressed by your victory as far as the Memphis and Florida State game was concerned.
Yeah, that one, I don't know what's going on with Florida State, but DJ Uyunglele, I'm hoping he gets it together. He seems like a good guy. He's a guy that you always want to root for. But right now, he's just not getting it done on the field, and you hope that he can by the end of the season.
All right, how about your 2 other picks? I know you were. What were you? 2-1?
Yeah, in the NFL last week, we got our dog of the week with the Buccaneers, and surprisingly, a lot of underdogs won this last week in the NFL. But yeah, we got that one. We got the Cardinals as well, and I'll tell you something: Kyler Murray is looking like a man possessed in the NFL right now. I know some people are jumping on the train now, but I think a couple weeks ago, Pete, we talked about Kyler Murray maybe winning Offensive Player of the Year or something like that. I can't remember exactly
how long it would take you to break out into your victory lap here.
Man,
in week 2.
Yeah, well, I'm excited that as of right now, he's my favorite starting quarterback in the league right now. So I'm glad that Kyler Murray is doing his thing.
Did you take up that? Did you place that bet for him to win the MVP? What were the odds?
The odds, I think, for him to win the MVP, I initially said that they were going to be higher than Offensive Player of the Year, but I think the fact typically is Offensive Player of the Year is not normally a quarterback given. That one's normally given to, your wide receiver or running back. So I think the odds for Kyler Murray to win the MVP were like plus 900 or something like that, but I didn't even take it. But I've taken it in every single fantasy league, if that means anything.
Yeah, he's been red hot. What do you think the difference for him has been this year?
Man, I think, well, one, I don't think there's been a recent Call of Duty game that came out. Jokings aside, I know a lot of people were talking about Kyler Murray playing video games and stuff, but I think being removed from the game for so long, he found a passion back for it, and he's been able to take a lot of time to learn and see different offenses, and now he's got Marvin Harrison Jr. That's another difference maker right there, and I think that all these things pairing up together, Kyler Murray he's primed to continue what he's doing.
How has Marvin Harrison Jr. been able to have such an immediate impact? Every time you look down, whether it's fantasy, whether it's you're watching a game, and then there's highlights of the Arizona game, he's making another huge play.
Yeah, I mean, week 1, he struggled a little bit, and there was a lot of talk about he's not fast enough or whatever, but I think it's just his balance, his ability to, that first touchdown he caught, that was a great ball by Kyler Murray, but a lot of wide receivers in the league are not making that play. And the fact that he was able to get both feet down just shows how special his body balance really is. And I think that has been, what he did in college, and that's what got him drafted top 5. And clearly it's showing up in the league too.
We want to talk to you a little bit about your picks, obviously, but I cannot deny the opportunity to talk to a Charlotte 49ers football player, former football player, a guy who lives in the Queen City, and an owner by the name of Dave Tepper, and an organization now with the Carolina Panthers. It feels like a complete shipwreck, and it feels like it's really been that way. There was some initial optimism when he bought the team, but that faded quickly, and not much has changed. I want to talk to you about Bryce Young a little bit. But what do you think so far about Dave Tepper as an owner, his tenure with the Panthers?
Yeah, well, I wore my Panthers scarf week 1 of
That's
me
right.
jumping on this episode. I almost threw on a brown paper bag on my face before I came on today, but decided against that. But I think that there's a lot going on in Carolina, and I don't think that Bryce Young is necessarily the issue. I do think that Bryce Young has struggled, and I think it was the right decision for him to take a seat, take a breath. Let's get back to, getting our basics right. But at the end of the day, Pete, I think that it is a David Tepper issue. David Tepper is now 31-70 as the Carolina Panthers owner. And since 2019, there is no team in any sport, any major league sport, that has a lower win percentage. I'm talking MLB, NHL, NBA, and NFL. No other team has a lower win percentage. That is a big problem. Everything in the NFL is pointing towards the green. Everything is pointing up. Ratings are up. People watching games are up. Ticket prices are up. People are feeling the stands. And I think from an organization standpoint, from a company standpoint, if everything in your company looks green and everything is going great, but there's this one bloody red spot on your ledger at the bottom, you have to take a look at that. And honestly, I think if you're the leader of that red group, if you're the manager in that division, you're going to probably get canned. I think about the way the Panthers have not been able to fill a stadium. Last year, I think there was 100% a game where tickets were less than $1. And I personally still didn't go. Like you said, I live here in Charlotte. David Tepper is throwing drinks at fans in Jacksonville. He's taking the hats off of a host here in Charlotte that works at a restaurant. I mean, he's probably getting paid about $15 an hour. He's trying to get in, seat tables, and go home. And here comes David Tepper and disrespecting him. I think that it's been an ugly scene in Carolina, but I think if you're Roger Goodell, it might be time to take a vote on getting this guy out of here because it's making the entire league look bad. I'll tell a story. I have a friend who runs in the run club that I do on Thursday mornings here in Charlotte, and they work for the Charlotte Hornets, and they're looking for a new job. I suggested, hey, why don't you go work for the Carolina Panthers? Immediately, with no hesitation, no, I don't want to work there. Apparently, it really sucks to work there. And I think about that, and it's like, okay, everything is pointing in one direction. Everything is pointing towards the top. David Tepper, sports and entertainment, is all in all, it not been a good situation. And you also think about the fact it's a flex. I'm 24 years old. If I worked for the Jacksonville Jaguars on the PR team, if I worked for the media team in Atlanta, I'm flexing that to my friends. People don't even want to consider working for the Carolina Panthers, and it starts to show up in the product in the field. And I hate that Bryce Young has gotten the brunt of this whole thing, but I think you have to point back to that one spot up top at David Tepper. And I think all of those things included, honestly, all those things by themselves is enough to take a look at it. But at the end of the day, all of them together, it's time to call for a vote for David Tepper in Charlotte.
That is a great anecdote about your buddy in the run club. I think that illustrates an issue and sort of a vibe around that team in the city. What is the vibe? Again, you boots on the ground in Charlotte around David Tepper. It's a tough time to be a sports fan in Charlotte really right now. When you look around it, your 49ers on the football field escaped Gardner Webb on Saturday by the skin of their teeth. The Hornets have sucked forever. God bless them. I love them. They just can't seem to get it right. The Panthers, what is the vibe around Charlotte sports, specifically starting with the Panthers?
Yeah, well, Charlotte is one of the highest growing cities in the entire country, Pete, and we can't fill out a stadium for a sporting event. And I think specifically to the Carolina Panthers, it's like maybe 40% at capacity, and probably 35% of the people in the building are the away team. It's a shame to be a fan. I'm embarrassed to say that I'm a Panthers fan. I've lived in North Carolina my entire life, except for a couple years, and it's been bad for pretty much all of it. In 2015, we had a great team, and people still talk about 2015 here in Charlotte. And I think about it like this: if you're talking about something from a decade ago, something ain't right today. And that's what's going on here in Charlotte. We cannot get it together. And I genuinely do not believe that we will have a winning season here in Carolina until David Tepper is gone. I had a friend ask me, how many years do I think it's going to be until we have one? I don't care, Pete, if we have the number one overall pick every season for the next 10 years. I do not believe with faith that we will have a winning season until David Tepper is gone.
The damage done to Bryce Young, it's been a real short-term situation, but do you see that lasting for him in his career? How can he shake that? Does he need just a complete change of a venue?
I don't think Bryce Young's career is over by any means. I hope that it's not done.
And neither do I.
Here in Carolina. And I think Bryce Young's a great dude. He's like my personal favorite player in the league. Yes, because he's a great quarterback and he was at Alabama and he plays for the Carolina Panthers. But I'll tell you a story about Bryce Young. I played basketball here at the YMCA here in Charlotte, North Carolina. And in the offseason, the Carolina Panthers players will come, they'll play basketball, hang out. When Bryce Young shows up, everybody's in shell shock. Everyone is like, oh my God, number 1 overall pick is here in the gym. Bryce Young doesn't take that to stroke his own ego. He walks around the gym. He daps every single player up that is there in the gym. He doesn't take it as a moment of, oh, look at me. Now it's not how cool is Bryce Young. It's, for the 15-year-old kid that's in the gym, how cool am I now that I got to share this experience with Bryce Young? That's why he's my personal favorite player. And that's why I'm always praying for him and hoping the best for Bryce Young. I think that right now it's just something that he needs to take a seat. He needs to figure things out because it's a lot on him right now. It's the right decision. And I think that he'll come back, hopefully, for the Carolina Panthers. And I think he'll have a very successful career.
All right, that's good stuff there. I know Chris Lewis walks in there like he's Charles Oakley. He's got everybody running for cover. Over yeah. All right, let's get to your picks. I want to hear. I mean, right now you're hot. You're hot. So not just me. Everybody wants to hear who you have coming up this week.
Yeah, I'm glad we get back into Saturdays. Last week we stayed away from those games, but this week there's some really good games and there's some lines that I really like. I think USC at Michigan right now the line is at -5.5. USC is favored, and I would take that. I think Lincoln Riley knows how to coach a quarterback. We all know that. And Miller Moss is no different, the starting quarterback for the Trojans. He throws absolute seeds around the field. And the USC defense looked a lot better than these past couple of years, even dating back to Oklahoma, if you're thinking about Lincoln Riley versus LSU in week 1, and they get a win again last week. And I think Michigan has a good bit to still figure out. They lost 10 of their 11 starters on the offensive side of the ball last year, and they lost their head coach in Jim Harbaugh. I think Ann Arbor is going to be buzzing. Of course, it's going to be buzzing. It's a big Big Ten game. USC's big matchup for the first time in the Big Ten. And I think that they walk into Ann Arbor and shut them up. And I think they get a good win there.
Well, yeah, and Texas kind of supplied the blueprint for that a few weeks ago. We'll see if they can follow suit. All right, who you have
100%.
next?
Another big one, Tennessee at Oklahoma. This is going to be – Yeah, this is going to be Oklahoma's big test in the SEC, and this is kind of moving towards your end of the United States. And I think Nico Iamaleava is I believe how you pronounce his name.
That's pretty damn good. Yeah,
he's ridiculous. He in Tennessee has the best pass rusher, maybe the best player in the entire country with James Pierce Jr. I think that they're going to get pressure on Oklahoma's quarterback, and I think that they can walk in. These are two teams on the road who are favored that I've got walking into hostile environments, taking some big wins. Tennessee -7 at Oklahoma.
All right. Anybody else on Saturday, or we go right to Sunday?
We're going to move over to Sunday. We're going to count our cash Saturday night, and then we're going to move into Sunday and have a good one there. This one is a little bit. There's some good games. And I think that the lines are not in favor of the better this week. But we found a couple. We did a little bit of deep diving, and we found a couple of games that we like. The first one.
Respect, by the way, last week for just staying away on Saturday. I love that. It made me feel very good about trusting you.
Oh yeah, I mean, if it's not there, it's not there, and we don't like to lose money. That's for sure. But this week we got the Colts. The Colts are playing at home in Indianapolis versus the Chicago Bears. Right now, their line is at -2. They are the favored team at home, and I think the Packers. I think the Packers did run all over the Colts. But I don't think that the Chicago Bears are going to be able to use that same blueprint, keeping Anthony Richardson out of rhythm and off of the field. I think that the Colts will start to lean more on Jonathan Taylor. He averaged 8.5 yards per carry last week. I mean, in the NFL, that's pretty special. They have a great offensive line. They have one of the best running backs in the entire game. I think that Shane Steichen and the Indianapolis Colts start to lean a little bit more on that, take a little off of Anthony Richardson, and I think they get a big win here at home versus the Chicago Bears.
I love it. I love your ability to kind of to look to Chicago. It doesn't feel great right now around their ability to move the ball, sustain drives, and I feel like that could be a team where I don't want to say free fall, but I think that's a great team to bet against before everybody gets wise to it.
Yeah, they have a really good defense, and they literally won week 1 because of their defense. Yeah. But I think Caleb Williams, just like every other quarterback, let me be clear, needs the time to develop, needs the time to see all these crazy pressures, see the speed of the game. There was an interception that he threw versus the Texans last week where it's like, if you're playing in the Pac-12, you're rolling right, you just kind of heave one off to the sideline. Your guy's going to be open and it's going to be a 60-yard touchdown, but not in the league, not against Houston. That gets picked off and goes the other way. I think that it's just going to take a couple more weeks of learning. And I think that, Caleb Williams has a better game this week, but I still believe that the Colts are going to.
You talk about that difference. Peyton Manning, I think, in his rookie year threw more interceptions in the history, season-wise, of the NFL. And there's a story, he's talking to his dad after one of the games, and his dad was just like, Archie Manning, and he's like, how's it going, or what are you seeing out there? And he was just like, Dad, nobody's open. Like it's that much faster. The players are that much better. The adjustment is very real. We see it sometimes before our own eyes. All right, last one. What do you got? Give me one more. We're short on time. I've taken up too much.
Yeah, we got the Steelers at home in their home opener, week 3 versus the Chargers. I think the Steelers are rolling. I think Justin Fields is doing just enough to win football games, obviously. And I think TJ Watt is still playing like a man possessed. Fields is going to make enough plays. He's going to make enough throws, and the offense is going to do just enough. It's going to be a low scoring game. If you like betting the under, I really don't, because what am I going to bet on, watching 3-0? I don't want to watch that game. But if you are that kind of guy, take the under. It's going to be a low scoring game, but ultimately I got the Steelers.
All right, those are the keys right there. Kevon Cobb, dude, I appreciate it. We'll holler at you next week.
Let Key cook, baby. You guys have a good one.
The chef. Thanks, brother.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports, Pete.
Coming at ya! Zach Burke on the wheels of steels. We are live here in the Alico building, 21. Was it stories? I'd say floors.
Yeah, well, we'd have to get technical because there's no 13th floor.
21 stories high.
Colt Brennan Memorial Studio.
It's not the Colt Brennan Memorial Studio.
I've heard it both ways.
We are here at Rogue Media in the Colt Brennan Memorial Studio. That's kind of dark, though.
Paying tribute, paying homage to a complicated figure of my childhood.
Well, from one complicated figure to another, Cam.
Another one of my childhood, yeah.
You are here to talk about Aaron Hernandez.
As I so often am.
Well, this is ready made for me and for you, and you have some context to it. I'll hold this, man. I don't mind. Let me hold this rest of the show, Zach. Is that cool?
It's the ghost of Aaron Hernandez. He does not want us to talk.
Came blowing in from across.
I'll bet your mom's
the
a big
sea.
Sinatra fan.
I ended up being a Sinatra
So
fan.
am I.
Because of first song in Wall Street, Fly Me to the Moon. That's just an amazing sequence.
It might be his best song.
I mean, I'm not here to break down his best. I can't do Sinatra.
When he first heard Light My Fire by The Doors, which is one of my favorite songs ever, he ripped the radio out of his car and threw it out the window.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's one of my favorite music stories. He was so mad.
Who told you that? Dean Martin?
It's like a documented story. But yeah, Dean and I had lunch a few weeks ago. And
All right, Aaron Hernandez.
Yeah.
Where were you the day when Aaron Hernandez was arrested for the murder of Odin Lloyd?
I was at home. We were just about to settle in for dinner. It was like a late afternoon. I feel like it was an early dinner at the house. And it was on the TV. I had seen it on Twitter. And it was like, what the hell, dude? Like I was telling Zach about this earlier. It was a wild week in Boston sports. So Ray Allen had just left to go to the Heat that offseason, like the year before. And he had just hit that shot to force a game 7. So that sucked. The Bruins lost the Stanley Cup final and watched the Blackhawks skate the cup on their home ice after giving up 2 goals in 17 seconds in the final minute of the game 6. And then that happened. And I think if I'm not mistaken, if I'm remembering it correctly, there were like some rumblings before of like police are investigating Aaron Hernandez for something. We didn't really know what.
But it was like a nothing deal.
Right. And then we get the infamous shot of him with the white T-shirt on with his hands cuffed behind his back.
Well, at first, remember now, at first, like, and this shows like in newsrooms, and they knew something major was happening because if you remember, he was driving around and he goes to Foxborough. Remember, he stops to get gas, and the reporters are all, literally, so clearly they were tipped off that this guy was going to get charged with this murder at any moment, right?
Yeah.
And then he goes to Foxborough, and either Belichick or Kraft was like, you got to go home.
Leave. Yeah. Get out of here.
Yeah.
And
so
then it's at his house, North Attleboro. Yeah.
And I wonder now, just you and I thinking out loud, you got to imagine, right? Like Patriot Security, they're tied in with police. Like, so somebody hears, hey, Bill, like Robert, this is heavy duty.
Right.
Like
guy, if they had enough time to like revoke his key card access, they probably would have, you know what I mean? Like seriously, like, hey, the police need to talk to this guy. So do not let him in here.
And then I remember Michelle Steele was doing the reporting. Is she a Boston personality or from Boston? She's with ESPN at the time.
Yeah, at least adjacent. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if she's from there, but she definitely worked there at one point.
Yeah. So she was, obviously Bristol's not too far, but she was the person who was telling me what was going on. I can remember that immediately. As a Patriots fan, even I know you're such a savant at the time, you probably were pretty tapped in. Do you remember hearing, you talked about rumblings about the reports that he was being investigated. Had you heard about off the field stuff? Like I really didn't even, this hadn't come into my orbit.
Yeah. So like here and there, like there was always stories of Hernandez just wasn't mature. He came into the league when he was 20. He was the youngest player in the league. And so there was like immaturity stories like here and there, but nothing like bad, like just kind of juvenile. Like the way he would talk to reporters and stuff like that. And like, there was kind of a reputation of like, oh, this dude thinks he's like hard as fuck kind of thing, and then that turned out to eventually be like wannabe gangster. So some rumblings, but like nothing crazy. I mean, they had just signed him to a long-term deal the year before, so it wasn't anything that was going to hinder. And this is again Belichick's Patriots, so nothing that's distracting enough to the team that he's like, I'm not going to sign this guy, which has happened to plenty of other players for much less than murder. So
How did the Patriots miss it in your opinion?
I mean,
because he
like
was
the murder in general.
Well,
like,
no, we just
or just the fact that he was so wrapped up in bad guys.
He was
yeah.
a bad hombre.
I think they probably did know about some of it and tried to get him away from it. I was saying this with Mike earlier. Like, not all players turn out to be murderers, but like every team in the NFL and probably, the NBA and to some extent the MLB too, like you have to deal with people adjusting to making a lot of money at a young time in their lives. And a lot of them come from difficult backgrounds. Like there's character issues with people on every single NFL team. And so I think that was probably like kind of old hat. Hey, we've got someone who's got a bit of an attitude problem. He thinks he's a gangster. He's got, a bad crowd he rolls with back home. It's nothing we haven't done before, I think is what it probably came down to. And it just ended up being more intense than some of the other cases around the league. Warren Sapp was a tough guy to deal with forever, but he wasn't killing people.
Yeah.
So I think it just kind of went over an edge that they didn't see coming.
Yeah, I totally understand your perspective there. Like, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. Oh my God, this is awful. And then somebody's dead.
Right. Like, I don't think, I was using this example. It's like, it might make me sound like a Patriots homer to say that, but also like we don't think of the Panthers as the team that had Ray Caruth.
Yeah. Because they sucked.
Well, true, but he did an awful, awful illegal thing.
Yeah.
It might as well have been a murderer, or, the Ravens, they the team that
Ray Lewis
that hired Ray Lewis. You know what I mean?
Oh.
So it just becomes one of those things. And obviously Hernandez was guilty. I think Ray Lewis might have been guilty too.
Oh, no.
But it's just something that I personally don't pin on any one team typically. Because there wasn't any story, like there was nothing like a huge, assault at a bar that the Patriots covered up or anything like that. You know what I mean? It wasn't like
the University of Florida did.
Correct. They did. And I don't know how much the Patriots do about that, but that's another checklist for Urban Meyer. Yeah.
I thought Dynasty was pretty revealing when they talked about some of the behavior by Hernandez. And these are other players. Who was it? Dante Stallworth that was featured predominantly in that? Man, I think it's the third episode or whatever, but he sits down and he just goes, we called him Chico. And you could tell immediately, like the moment he starts to talk about Aaron Hernandez, it's like this fright. And because or disappointment, because he was one of the guys that really tried to help Aaron Hernandez get his shit together, and comes off, by the way, in Dynasty as one of the most lovable, likable guys you could possibly.
Stallworth, yeah. I mean, that's a guy who's dealt with his own demons.
Yeah. So
sports and courts, man.
So
there you go.
Why? What? So Stallworth.
Yeah,
been in trouble.
Little vehicular manslaughter.
He was an Eagle. I remember. So that took a dark turn. As if
we're not talking about a dude who killed people, by the way, more than one for sure.
Have you what are some of the stories that have been verified or close to that you heard in that Patriots locker room? Things that happened.
Can I tell you a kind of a minor one that was outside of the Patriots locker room?
Please.
And it's too bad. Usually I can tell this with some mystery, but I have a friend from home who his family has Patriots season tickets, and they went to the AFC Championship game. This was in January of 2013. The Ravens beat them in Foxborough and then won the Super Bowl. And, Foxborough is notoriously tough to get out of, and this is a night game. So it was one of those where you kind of just stick around and you just bite the bullet, like wait till like 1 a.m. to get out of there. And on Route 1, my friend, his dad got clipped from behind, and they pull over, and there's this guy like in a hoodie, like hood on, and being like really weird about it. And my friend's kind of like looking out the back to try and see what's happening. And his dad comes back, and he's got just like this wad of cash. There's like there's like a little dent on the end. And he was like, yeah, guy just didn't want to get insurance involved, gave me a bunch of money. It was Aaron Hernandez. At like 1:30 in the morning on Route 1 in the woods in the pitch black, his last game he ever played as a Patriot. And look back at that, just like, oh shit! Like, thank God. Like, so he was kind of sketchy, but
I mean, because at
like,
that look now jumping to conclusions, and your story is true. This is pure speculation, but at that point, this guy's doing a lot of drugs, like a lot of like PCP and stuff like that. Like, so who knows, like what he smoked right when he left the facility. He's probably like, I just want nothing to do with authorities.
Correct. Yeah.
In a situation like
this. And we've heard now, super paranoid guy, very, very paranoid. And it's like, I obviously can't put myself in the situation, but one of the problems he had was that he was too close to home. He's from Bristol, which is a good couple of hours, like 3 hours away. So it's like, you've seen Foxborough. I mean, it's in the woods. It's in the middle of nowhere. It's farther away from a city than any stadium in football, except maybe Santa Clara from San Francisco. And so it's like, if you can't stay out of trouble here, like there's a real problem. And I think that's something that the Patriots kind of use to their advantage with these guys that I'm talking about who have character issues, where it's like, all right, well, you're going to live in North Attleboro, Massachusetts. You're going to be 10 minutes away from the facility. And in that 10-minute drive, you're not going to see a goddamn thing. You're going to go past one McDonald's, and that's going to be it. There's no nightlife for you to go out to. You'll go to the facility and you'll go home. Like, it's perfect for that Belichick to ignore the noise kind of atmosphere. And that's why I think one of the reasons why so many of these characters could come in, like Corey Dillon, for example.
Yeah.
Like, that was a dude who had a bad reputation in the league.
Problem.
Bad.
Yeah.
He comes to the Patriots and he just becomes this head down, quiet, third or whatever, kill the clock out kind of back at the end of his career. I mean, same thing to a different extent with Randy Moss, not criminal activity, but he had, some in his earlier days, but had just a reputation problem around the league. And he was running himself out of Oakland, and he goes to the Patriots and revives his career. And I think they probably thought, hey, we've done this before. And this one was just too far gone. The dude Hernandez had too many issues, man. What a freaking player he was.
So that's what I wanted to ask you. I really believe in a lot of these situations. It's like, how much wiggle room do you get these guys? It is a lot of times risk reward. And I think the greater, the better the player, right? The more willing you are to take the risk. Do you think that there was ever a time, or again, I don't like the speculation, but had you heard a story or something you read where someone like Tom Brady or a player of that ilk around the Patriots facility or team was like, hey, this guy is bad news?
Yeah, I think the stories we've heard since were like, the Bradys and Deion Branch, who was there for a bit, would be like kind of what we talked about earlier, like wake the fuck up, dude. Like, you're in the NFL now. Like, this little play gangster shit is over, and like, grow up. You're in the NFL. You're in a great position right now. So I don't know if there was anything like that to management. I didn't like in the dynasty how they were more or less pushing you towards, this is kind of Bill Belichick's fault. He didn't trade Aaron Hernandez after signing him to a 4-year deal. It was like, that's not how this works. Because he goes to Seattle doesn't mean he's not going to kill somebody.
That footage from Dynasty where Tom Brady is yelling. Do you know what I'm talking about? Where they mention that they tell a story where Hernandez is at practice and he's not in uniform and he's completely fucking around and he's being a total distraction. And then Tom Brady kind of shouts at him like, knock it the fuck off. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I remember the story. I don't remember the footage.
So they show footage and they make you think that this is that instance, but you really can't tell. if it's just Hernandez being a goofball at a practice and Tom Brady yelling, "Shut the fuck up" to somebody else.
Someone 3 years earlier.
Yeah, totally. So it's
Yeah.
kind of, you keep that in the back of your mind.
I mean, I wouldn't put that past Brady. There's
Yeah.
plenty of stories about Brady calling out his teammates like that in a
So-
constructive way.
we always seem to run up against it, but we're talking about American Sports Story. That's the Aaron Hernandez show that debuts on FX. It's out now.
Did they know that the initials are ass? Do they know that? Because it used to be American Crime Story, but
Yeah.
I
Well,
noticed
I
they
think they
changed it
changed
for
it
American
up.
Sports Story. This is
Funny
gonna
to
be
think somebody
ass.
might have missed that. So a couple things. Do you know who plays Tim Tebow?
Yes, we did talk about this. on
Patrick
my show.
Schwarzenegger.
Can you believe he's related to Arnold? Can you believe that?
I love the fact that a guy named Norbert Leo Butts plays Bill Belichick. Like, that's
Why
when we-
is that even a name? Why is that
That's-
even a stage?
That's
name?
when we get into the weeds, where the guy Quardarius Smith is game day Deion Branch. So I don't want to see a regular Deion Branch, but it's fun that this is also where it can get real ugly, right? Like, who plays these stars? Who plays these people who are household names that we're so familiar with? And now, if you get that wrong, you've really lost me.
Yeah.
You probably haven't lost the mom who's watching with her husband, but
right. That because that's what I'm saying. Like that's what this is actually for, is the true crime people.
yeah, It's not
Which is
for us.
fine, but this is where we, and specifically me, where I get really worked up.
will you watch
Like,
it?
I probably will for this show.
Yeah, I will 100% watch it. I'm probably going to go.
Like
and
when I
watch
was doing a Boston sports show and I couldn't stand the Dynasty anymore, I stopped.
it. Well, another thing, the way that FX does this, it's episode by episode,
Yeah.
week by week.
Yeah, I think, is there 2 tonight? Is that it?
Oh, maybe,
And
yeah.
then the rest are week by week.
I watched the Donald Sterling one this summer. First of all,
I tried, man. I really
Holy crap.
tried. I
the
really
woman who
fucking
played
tried.
V. Stiviano was worth watching. I was like, she was really very, very beautiful.
Yes,
And it
yes.
speaks to our lack of depth in America because she was from overseas. But she did a phenomenal job. I was like, I thought she was really compelling. I thought that what's his face as Donald Sterling was awesome. Ed O'Neill was really good. But there's a lot of stuff like, did you ever see the Instagram footage of the NBA players goofing on, like, the real NBA players on who played like Chris
Mm-mm.
Paul? I mean,
Huh.
it was they had it.
They
had
should. That's kind of
They
their
had
casting was kind
they
of
had
tough from
a
the
young man
players.
who was definitely of Asian descent playing Steph Curry. I mean, it was like, huh.
Like, no doubt, too.
Yeah,
Like, no doubt. It was like, what
You
are
know
we?
what I'm
What are we
talking
going
about,
for
right?
here? Is this an abstract
Yeah.
depiction of Steph?
Did you
Curry?
watch the whole thing?
It was like that Marilyn Monroe movie with Anna de Armas. That was terrible. No, I watched like maybe an episode.
I watched like 4 episodes and then I ran out of gas.
I couldn't,
Yeah.
man. I made it much farther in winning time than I did with that.
Come on, Winning Time was great, but I'm looking forward to watching this. Are you familiar with Ryan Murphy, the executive producer? Who's this guy?
Is he the Nip Tuck guy who does the other ones?
Let's see.
He's done like the OJ one and the
Yeah,
Johnny
American
Versace
Horror
one.
Story, Nip
Yeah.
Tuck. Yeah. The OJ
My
one was
favorite podcaster is featured in this, or he's got someone playing him. In
Who
this.
is?
My favorite podcaster, Kirk
Who?
Minahan. He was a Boston sports talk guy at the
Yeah.
time. And so they have someone playing him in the show.
Oh, really?
So I can't wait to
See,
find
that's
out what
awesome.
that
I
is. They're
love
going to
stuff
make it
like
out
that.
to be like he killed him, like, by talking about him on the radio.
Yeah, I know this is not going to be very good, but I'll still watch it. Like, if it's very good, I'll be knocked on my ass.
Yeah, like I thought the other ones were good though. I thought
Yeah.
OJ was good. It was, probably
OJ,
not as
but-
great as
but-
everyone thought. And then I thought the Gianni Versace one was great. I thought that
I
was
didn't watch
really,
Gianni
really good.
Versace. I need to watch that.
I didn't know that story, which helped. but it
Well,
was
that
really,
that
really
helps
good.
a great deal. And I
Yeah.
think with OJ,
It's
we were
probably
just
this one.
far enough away. I think sometimes with the clipped one about Donald Sterling, with this one in particular, I think sometimes we're too close to these events where it's awesome. We want to have a movie or nonfiction story about them, but at the same time, it's too hard if you were anywhere near it to
Yeah.
buy it.
Yep.
It's so hard.
Yeah.
Like All the President's Men. How many years was that film after? I guess it was 72, right?
76.
But when was the Nixon
Watergate?
stuff? Watergate.
Yeah, 72.
72. So that's only 4 years.
Found out about it 73.
4 years. But also nobody knows who the hell Woodward or Bernstein are at that point in time. Like,
That's
just can't
true. You didn't know the
identify with them.
backstory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're just living
Nor
in-
most of the characters, to be fair.
Yeah, we're living in a much different time. All right, we'll be in the same time tomorrow at a different time on the Pete Sousa Show, powered by the Rogue Media Network. Goddamn, a big thanks to Zach Burke. I mean, I'll tell you what, this guy is over here
Gutting it
just
out today. man.
absolutely running it. I think I might like this, Zach, the little freehand, you know?
You could do worse.
I could do worse. All right, we'll
think
try
that's
to do
great.
better tomorrow. Pete Sousa signing off.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports, Pete.
We are Rogue Media Sports.